Hello Year 10. Today I'm going to show you how to make focaccia. Focaccia is a bread that uses yeast as a raising agent. It's an Italian bread and it's usually flavoured with garlic and herbs, and you sprinkle sea salt on. You can put rosemary, parmesan on the top. So it's a really tasty bread. So we're going to continue the theme of raising agents, and we're going to use yeast as a raising agent. Okay, so you will need for this recipe 250 grams of strong plain flour, which I've sieved into the mixing bowl, about 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a sachet of yeast, easy blend yeast, fast action yeast, by the supermarket's own, Tesco's, Morrison's, much cheaper, and actually you can get that in the shops. I bought some today. You'll need a tablespoon of olive oil, a teaspoon of garlic granules. If you haven't got that, don't worry, just mince up some garlic, either chop it really finely or grate it with a very small grater. And then about 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, and I thought I'd got that, but I didn't. So I've just used mixed herbs, which will have oregano in it. Okay, and then you need 150 mils of water. So go over that again. Strong plain flour, yeast, salt, garlic granules, oregano, olive oil and water, and you need 150 mils of water, and you pour that in, about 3/4 of it. Don't pour it all in at once, and then you mix that round. Now I mix this with a knife, that's how I prefer it, but you can use a wooden spoon, and what you're trying to do is form a soft dough. If it's too dry, your bread will be hard and won't rise very well. So you need to just get the right consistency. So keep stirring it, and you should find that eventually it will all mix together in a ball, right? And you want it to be slightly tacky, because that will give you a much better rise. It'll give you a better consistency. So you can see that it's just starting to stick together. So I'm just going to pour the last of my water in. You might need to add a little bit more water, because different flours will absorb different amounts of water. So 150 is a guide. Okay, when you've added your water, you should be able to just sort of clean the bowl out, and the dough should be slightly tacky, right? Not dry, not crumbly, and not porridge. Okay, put that to soak now, and that'll save you some work later. And then what you're going to do is you're going to sprinkle some flour onto your surface, and you're going to start off just by kneading it with your fingertips and just getting it smooth. Okay, and then once you've got it smooth, you can use the heel of your hand, and you just keep drawing it up, pressing it down, drawing it up, and that you need to knead for about 5 minutes, which I'm not going to do now, but I'll if I wasn't in a hurry and I only had a limited time of recording, I would probably knead for 10 minutes. Okay, so you need your oven on. It needs to be on 220 or gas mark 7. You need a tin, a round or a square tin is good, or even the top off a casserole dish is quite handy if it's at least sort of 7-8 inches in diameter. I've got just a sandwich cake tin, which I've just greased with some olive oil, and that's just ready for when I need it. Right, so as you knead, you're developing a substance, a protein called gluten. Flour contains a number of proteins, but the two main ones are something called glutenin and something called gliadin. And when you mix flour, you hydrate it with water, it forms a protein called gluten. Strong plain flour has a high protein content, and that means that it has more gluten in it. And so when you're kneading, you are developing this gluten. It's an elastic protein, and it forms the framework of things like bread and pastry, scones, cakes. But for bread, because it's going to increase quite a lot in volume, you do need strong plain flour. If you can't get strong plain flour, you will be able to make it with plain flour. Just keep an eye on it when it's rising, because you don't want it to rise too much and then flop. If you can't get strong plain flour, you could use a white bread mix, and then just add the ingredients. Don't add salt or yeast, but then add the olive oil and the garlic granules, etc. Okay, so after 5 minutes, this mixture should be quite springy. You shouldn't have any difficulty kneading it. If you're really struggling, it's because it's too dry. And if it's too wet, well, you'll know about it because it'll be everywhere on the work surface. Okay, so after 5 minutes, you should have a dough that is smooth, no cracks. It should stretch and not break, right? And that means that you've developed the gluten. And the other thing is, if you press it, if you prod it, it will spring back. So there you go, springing back. Right, so you now need to get the dough to fit in your tin. You don't really need to use a rolling pin for this. All you do is just press it out. Now, because it's an elastic protein, it will spring back. Don't worry about it, because if you get it more or less to the size of your tin, as it rises, it will fill the tin. Right, so there's my dough. I'm just going to say, not quite there. Just keep passing it out. The problem is if you roll it, you might end up with it one side thicker than the other. And so when it cooks, one will cook far more than you need to, and it might possibly burn. Okay, so once you've got your dough more or less the right size, pop it into your tin and press it right into the sides of the tin. But as I say, it doesn't have to go absolutely to the edge. So I've got that like that. So next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to just brush over the top with olive oil. Okay, not very much. And that will just give a lovely crust to the bread. And then with a wooden spoon, use the handle, go round and make indentations. Press it right down, okay, all the way, and then go inside that, pressing it down all the way. Okay, so you get something that looks like that. So you might be beginning to see where I'm going with this. You then need about 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt, okay, and you just sprinkle that all over, and that will give a delicious crunch to your bread. You then need, it says 25 grams of cheese, preferably Parmesan, but anything you want. Now I've not used 25, this is 15 grams, and there's quite a lot. I've grated it on a small grater, so very fine grater, which I think looks better when it's melted. Just spread that round. So last thing I'm going to do, and this is entirely optional, is I'm going to put some rosemary on it. Okay, you don't have to use it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom of the stalk. You only need one stalk, and I'm just going to cut off the rosemary so I've got a bit of stalk that I can stick into the bread. Okay, so, and then you're just going to arrange those around the outside of the bread. I'll just finish off very quickly. Okay, so there we go. So then just pop that around your dough. Don't worry that it burns, where, you know, it goes brown when you cook it. You can just pull it off. But what it will do is it will impart lovely flavour into your dough. Okay, right, so now what you need to do is cover that. And the best thing to use is a plastic bag. Cut off the bottom. And then what you need to do is grease it. So you can use your pastry brush if you've got one, or even your hand, and just grease the inside of it. Put that onto your dough, and where there was a fold in the bag, these blue ones are great for this, fold it over. If you haven't got that sort of bag, doesn't matter, make a fold, and then just tuck that under. And what that fold will do, as it rises, it will force the fold to open so that the plastic doesn't stick to your bread. Put that somewhere warm. I'm going to stick it on the top of my cooker because my cooker's on ready, and you leave it till it doubles in size. Basically, it'll come over the edge of the tin, and that'll take anything from 20 minutes to 40 minutes, a bit longer. It depends on how warm your kitchen is. And what you end up with is this. Okay, so that's my focaccia. So when you take it out of the oven, leave it for a minute or two, take it out the tin, and if you do that, it should sound hollow. And there you go, done. Enjoy.